Hello, I'm Jim Keegan of Golf Convergence, and welcome to the August podcast regarding yield management. Some think yield management has been around for years. There has always been variable pricing in terms of the time of the day, the time of the year, the hour within the day, or the nature of the player, whether they be a senior, junior, regular, or a pass card holder. But implementing yield management historically has been far more luck than skill, and most golf and underachieve the revenue that they could otherwise. That's why I'm so thrilled today to be with Aaron Gleason of Dynamic Revenue Services. Welcome, Aaron.
How are you, Jim?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. Talk to me about your pricing philosophy and how yield management works.
Well, I think it's important to start and talk a little bit of revenue management and dynamic pricing as a whole before we get into too much of the golf industry. The idea of dynamic pricing and revenue management is not new to many industries, the hotel industry, the rental car industry, the airline industry specifically, and most recently here locally, the Cardinals have started dynamically pricing the tickets and found great success. And we were fortunate enough to spend a little time with the Vice President of Ticket Sales, Joe Strom, several years ago and have some very nice conversations with him that really spurred us into trying to develop this for the golf industry, and have been doing so now, wrapping up our third year of dynamic pricing and revenue management, and have seen tremendous results in the golf industry. And essentially what it is, kind of in a nutshell, is pricing your tee times based on supply and demand.
What are all of the variables that go into optimizing the revenue for the club? I look at the list on this current slide. How can one even comprehend all of this without using your fine software? How did you come up with all of these components?
Well, it was kind of like going down a rabbit hole, in all honesty. You know, we started the process of going in and trying to, price our times based on supply and demand. And the first place we started, of course, was utilization. And as day parts, let's say, for example, between 8 and 9 on a Saturday morning, started to fill up, we started to raise pricing as utilization increased. What we came to find was that we were missing out on a lot of revenue because we weren't anticipating demand. So how do you go in and anticipate demand? And what we came to find was initially you have to start with looking at historical data. It's important to have that historical data to be able to start to predict, especially in a resort environment, when your high peak, high demand days and day parts are going to be. And then you have to break it down into things that are more variable, like weather, like your competition and what's going on at their golf courses. Here in St. Louis, for example, if the Cardinals, it being a big sports town, and especially a baseball town, if the Cardinals have a day game, we see a decrease in demand at our facilities. So it's important that we know when those games are, what time they start, what special things are going on around the area. And we kind of work all of information into a nice little tight algorithm that assists us in pricing our tee sheets.
So what you do is you have an algorithm that is built within your software that when you get a client, you look at their historical demand off the tee sheet, and that sets the first layer or the foundation from which you will then start pricing their tee times going forward. Do I understand that correctly?
That's very good. Yes, of course.
Well, let's take a look at some real world results. Talk about this in terms of how you were able to a one-day increase of $4,000, which is really amazing because the average golf course only does about $8,000 a day in revenue. So you increased the revenue in one day by almost 50%. Talk about this example of how you were able to increase the revenue.
So this is just one example of one day and what can be done with proper revenue management. Essentially, we managed to find two very, very similar days at a golf course that traditionally sees pretty high demand. Both of them were 85 degrees. There was no rain. There was no events of any kind. And in 2012, we were not doing any type of revenue management. So we were setting our prices, and we had them in a tiered base or variable pricing schedule, to where it was one price clock. After 1 o'clock, it was another price, and then after 4 o'clock, it was another price. And we had a very good day. We did 188 players, and our average rate was almost $40, and we did $8,400 in revenue. With revenue management, we were able to increase not only the number of players, but our peak rate, which is very important. So the highest rate that we got in 2012 was $61.50, you may notice. But because we were able to figure that this was going to be a high demand day, the weather was very nice, we were able to sell golf for upwards of $79 because we were able to anticipate that demand. The lowest rate, conversely, on that same exact day was as low as $17. And that was way late in the afternoon, or after 5 p.m., where you would think generally, people aren't going to play. And what we've come to find is if you incentivize those individuals on a nice day to play, late in the day where they may only get in 9, 10, 11, 12 holes, they'll do that. Average rate actually came down, but the golf revenue went up significantly, and also the food and beverage revenue went up over $1,000 because of the additional players that we had at the facility.
So what this example, I think, shows to our listening audience is that what golf courses have done historically is they've got such a narrow bandwidth of pricing that they need to make it more extended, with taking their base rate higher for the prime time and perhaps even lowering some of their afternoon rates or their weekday rates. Is that a fair conclusion?
It is, and I think it comes down to many golf courses have come to the realization that in order for them to compete in today's environment, especially the way the economy is and the way the golf industry is, unfortunately, that they've realized that in parts of their day of low demand, they need to lower pricing. What they haven't really come to terms with is that in those days, those same days where they experience high demand in certain day parts, they should be able to raise their pricing. So this whole thing starts with either doing away completely with any posted rates, or posting similar to what you would see in a hotel if you ever look behind the door in the hotel room you're staying, posting a range of pricing. So you can have a rates page on your website that may say rates on any given day will range between X and Y. And then you can fluctuate pricing in that range without deceiving the consumer. And that's very important when you really look at it. The only way this works is that you have to make sure that you are being transparent with the consumer, and the consumer understands what it is they're paying and why they're paying.
This chart here talks about your entire portfolio at Walters Golf Management. And when we look at this, it's absolutely stunning that you were able to increase revenue 2013 to 2014, and the weather was consistent between the years in St. Louis, over $1,285,000. Have you been able to continue to sustain these results in 2015?
Yeah, so this graph that you're looking at here not only includes the Walters Management facilities, but also our Dynamic Revenue Services facilities as well. So it's a combination of St. Louis. There's courses that are on this list that are in Canada. We have courses in Oklahoma, California, Florida, Wisconsin. So this is a pretty good snapshot of pretty much everywhere in the country. And this is a comparison between 2013 and 2014. And the courses that you see that have the big jumps generally are the courses that came on in 2014. So we were able to really show great revenue changes one year to the next in those courses that we have the initial impact on. And we are able to continue that growth, though not to the same extent. We may see, for example, if you take a look at the PWGC, that's way up in revenue, or the CCAR, the first one, 191,000 growth. You're obviously not going to be able to sustain that year over year, but you are going to see growth from year over year. I was just actually doing our some report client that just came on at Lake of the Ozarks, which is not too far from St. Louis, and year over year through July, they're up $130,000 in online revenue, and their entire facility revenue is up 8%, which that's at a facility that through July has done a little over $1.5 million in revenue. So that's $120,000 in total revenue that they're up as well.
So is it fair to say that if a golf course were to retain your services and implement your dynamic revenue pricing, that they could anticipate a between 5 and 10% year over year increase in revenue in year one?
I think that it's fair to say that. Adoption at the facility level is important. So whenever you're going to, it's like anything else, Jim. If you go in and you buy into the systems, if you listen to the best practices, if you embrace the change and you can get your staff to embrace the change, the sky truly is the limit on what you can achieve. We have run into issues in the past where people have been, skeptical and they've not bought in. And while they do still see growth, the growth is stifled and is not quite as impactful as it would be if you get very good buy-in at the facility level.
Well, when we talk about buy-in and the computer-added revenue, what's your magic sauce? We saw all of the parameters that go into it. Explain to us what's the science behind yield management.
So I will tell you that there are systems that are out there that have utilization triggers built in, and those systems are great. It's a wonderful place to start, and it's important. Utilization is part of the formula. But what we've come to find is true revenue management is more than that. True revenue management is working with the staff from their marketing efforts all the way to pricing their golf, not only pricing their tee times, but trying to make sure that you price their season passes or membership in a way that works together with how you're pricing your golf, with working with the facility at the facility level to make sure that they're pricing the tournaments properly. Anything that generates revenue, a true revenue manager is going to want to touch, because it all needs to work together so that it's all moving in the right direction and there's nothing counteracting the things that you're trying to put together to make that revenue grow. So while it's important to have that utilization trigger system available, it's also important to be able to have a team of professionals that is focused on your revenue and working with you to achieve the results that you're looking to achieve.
Your partner, Jeff Smith, is well known throughout the industry in terms of having done a fabulous job with you in the management of the Walters Golf portfolio. Jeff has written some articles that are very supportive of third-party tee time distribution. I would be remiss if I didn't ask the question regarding, you really would not need to use third-party distribution, would you, if you were using yield management, or do the two go hand in hand?
I think it's important to first say that every facility is different, and every market is a little different when it comes to our third-party distribution. It's difficult for me to say one way or the other it's a good thing or a bad thing. I will tell you, in some cases we have found that third-party distribution is a necessity. In other cases we've found third-party distribution is not necessary. So it really depends on the facility itself. What I can tell you is, if you go back to the slide of what we, when it talks about the things that go into what we're doing to anticipate that demand, one of the things that you see is conversion analysis. And one example I can give you that we look at on a regular basis is conversion. So the folks at GolfNow have been kind enough to share market data with us to let us know that in each one of our markets where we have clients, what conversion is on GolfNow. So for example, if someone clicks on a facility to look at their course inventory, how many of those people that click actually buy? we can tell you, for example, in St. Louis that conversion is around 8%. That 8% is the average. It's not one facility specifically, but if you take the facilities we have in St. Louis that we are revenue managing, that conversion is upwards of 13 to 14%. So we know that because we've engaged the consumer in our pricing and we have quote-unquote better shirts on the rack, we're actually converting more of those customers who look to actual customers who make the purchase. And I think that's an impactful number and shows you the power of revenue management.
Do I understand this correctly? The reason you have such a higher conversion rate is because you've got the tee time correctly priced in the right hour on the right day for the right player, and that's why you're getting the higher conversion rate, because you've done the sophisticated analysis beforehand to be able to offer him what he wants when he wants it.
Yeah, that's correct. And you can simplify it by thinking of it as a rack, a rack of shirts. And if if all you have on that rack are extra larges, and that's all you have, and you have a guy that walks up and he's a small, or you have a guy who walks up and he's a double X, and you don't have that available to him, he's not going to make that purchase. So what it's important to make sure is that you can have golf every single day priced in a facet that represents all the different types of golfers, both price sensitive, quality sensitive, and time sensitive consumers. And if you can appeal to all of those golfers, you're going to convert more people into actual customers, and ultimately you're going to drive more revenue to your facility.
We're focusing on green fee and cart revenue, but the advantage of implementing yield management, I would think, would have many other benefits in terms of the reduction in labor necessary to answer the phone. Elaborate on the other benefits you've seen clients realize from adopting your service.
Well, so if you look at, kind of the industry, I would say the industry average these days, and you start talking about online revenue, and we were here, just 4 years ago, where we were only booking 8 to 12% of all of our golf online. So, we were, I would say, a little bit pessimistic in regards to can this work and how can this work, and we tossed around and kicked around ideas of how we could try to yield manage or revenue manage over the phone. And what we came to find was when studying the other industries that have found success with this is we needed to find a way to convert our consumers to become online customers. So first and foremost, I will tell you the results that we've seen are nothing short of extraordinary. We started with facilities that are booking 8 to 12% of their golf online, are now booking upwards of 80% of their golf online now. So that is an impactful number. We're not talking about a small percentage of our golf being revenue managed or a small percentage of our golf coming through our online distribution channels. We're talking about the vast majority of our golf coming through these online distribution channels, which gives us the capability to have less staff in the golf shop because we don't have to bring in that extra person just to answer the phones. To take that a step further, we have more time with our customers now. So the golf professional behind the counter doesn't have a phone in their ear and they're checking in a customer at the same time. Converse with their customers, build that rapport, actually talk to them about a golf outing or that sale on hard goods that we're having that day. Data collection. We are growing our databases faster than anyone else in the country right now because of the sheer amounts of golf that we're booking online. We're growing our database anywhere from 25 to 50% year over year, which are huge numbers. We have golf courses now with databases over 30,000. It's unbelievable when you really consider what you can do with a 30,000 person database at one single facility. We have better control of our pricing. So it's important if you're going to properly manage and you're properly going to dynamically price that the consumer has a good sample of what is available to them. So it's important that that consumer be able to go on the web, go on the course website and look at what's available to them so that they can see what their options are, so that they can select what is the best price at the right time for them. Low no-show rates. So the national average over the phone, you hear numbers 7, 8, 9%. When they book online, they're actually entering in their credit card information. They're not necessarily paying for it, but they are entering in their credit card information, email address, phone number, name. The no-show rate for tee times that are booked online is as low as 3%. And obviously, you can book tee times 24 hours a day, which is overlooked when you're booking 10 or 12% of your golf online. But I will tell you, it's impactful when you get an opportunity to close the shop down at 7 or 8 o'clock and go home, and let's say they change the forecast to they took the rain out of the forecast, and you leave with 100 players and you come in and there's 160 players. You start to understand how important that is.
That's amazing. I am absolutely stunned. We conducted a national survey about 18 months ago, and we found the average golf course only has 3,400 email addresses in their customer database. And for you to be able to assess and aggregate 30,000 email addresses, that's the size of some of the third-party distribution databases that people are accessing. So let's talk about why Dynamic Revenue Services. I'm a believer in what you do. It sounds absolutely fabulous. What's available in terms of the pricing and the cash models? How would I become a client of yours?
Well, so let me first start by saying that we are industry professionals. So we are in the golf business, and that's all we are. We're not a bunch of computer nerds that have kind of thrown together an algorithm and we're just going to hand it over to you, and we don't know how to speak your language and talk the talk, because we are, I'm a PGA Class A professional. We have a staff of industry professionals that have been general managers at clubs, who have been on the food and beverage side of the club, who have also been on the golf side of the club. So as you talked about, Jeff Smith is one of our partners who's been in the industry and was a past executive director of the Gateway PGA section. So we understand what it means to run a golf course and what it means to deal with the consumers that come in, and we understand how to speak that language and assist you in not only pricing your tee sheet but also in your marketing. What we started doing just started with a flat cash model. We had a lot of potential clients say, well, why don't you have a trade model? Because trade has a bad name in this industry, and what we've come to find is there's a lot of people, while they don't necessarily like the way some third-party distribution channels price that trade, trade is an attractive option to them. So we work very closely with a lot of our clients on that trade model, and we set floors and make sure that we're pricing in areas that they're comfortable with. But we do have trade. We have trade and cash models available. No long-term contracts either. So, at any point in time, if we have a client that's not pleased with the way that we're performing, we're not going to hold anyone's feet to the fire with anything more than maybe a one-season-long contract.
Could you frame for us, while every single golf course is different, every market is different, and the services may go from basic yield management to extensive daily calls with a client, what would be an average price in terms of your cash model one could anticipate?
So you're looking at anywhere, depending on the services that are chosen, from $6.99 to $9.99 a month, or you're looking at one trade time for those services as well.
So I could, for $12,000 a year on my golf course that's doing $1.5 million, I could get an extra $120,000 for an investment of $12,000. That's fabulous, Aaron. That really shows that 10-to-1 ratio as to why Dynamic Revenue Services solution should be considered by all golf courses.
It's actually worked out very well for a lot of our clients, and they definitely see the value in what they're getting. And it's important to touch on the return on that investment. And we know that the only way we're going to continue with a client is that we continue to show results for that client. And that's why I think it's important that we don't have that long-term contract, because we're a performance-based company, and we really relish the opportunities that we have to make sure that we are showing those results for our clients.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for being with us today. Aaron's contact information is 314-550-9899. 9544, and you see his email address at agleason@dynamicrevenueservices.com. Aaron, I was really looking forward to doing this podcast, and this was just absolutely fabulous. I have been seeing your company from afar. I have been reading the articles you've been publishing, and I so firmly believe in revenue management. Just a concluding story, we actually in 2000 were working with a company that was pricing airline seats in Dallas, Texas, and myself and another gentleman went down there to see what it would cost for us to be able to build the software, to be able to use it on the software that we were using, and it was a seven-figure number. It was very, very expensive. And so for somebody to be able to get for $12,000 a year, that's absolutely awesome. Aaron, thanks for being with us today. Do you have any concluding thoughts?
Jim, I just want to thank you so much for the time. This is a true passion of mine, and it has been a true pleasure over the last 3 years to be able to service our clients and do the things that we've done, and I truly believe that we're helping the industry. We were fortunate enough last year at the NGCOA to win the Champions Award, and got presented a nice little plaque while I was there. And it is truly a humbling experience to know that we're assisting the industry and assisting these facilities. I encourage anyone to check out our website at dynamicrevenueservices.com for more information. Got a lot of information on our resources page, so I encourage everybody to take a look at that. But I really do truly appreciate the time, Jim, and thank you so much for everything you do for the industry as well.
Aaron, thank you so much. Have a good day. And again, I encourage everybody to call Dynamic Revenue Services at 314-550-9544 and ask for Aaron Gleason.